Can we just pick up a couple of points in on the council's hearing today? Is that?
Yes, I just wanted to...
Can I just ask, Mr. Edwards, quite a lot has already been said. Do you want to respond to what's been said, or are you content to continue?
That thought would cross my mind. Can I just take a moment just to have a word? Yeah, we're rather conscious that it's going to be a very lengthy response if we delay the response until the end of the mission side presentation. So I wonder whether we can deal with points that have been raised thus far, and then to go from there, perhaps then deal with everything Mr. Anderson has said, and then Mr. Burke has said. I'm going to, in the usual way, ask Mrs. Hanson and Mr. Roberts to address the substantive points raised. But can I just deal with two sort of overarching points in response to Mr. Adams' submissions? The first is perhaps an obvious and straightforward one, that the consequences of inclusion of the submission site within the local plan would be towards the greenbelt boundaries to reflect the area proposed for built development. That therefore plainly will engage paragraph 83 of the framework, which provides that that change should only take place where exceptional circumstances have been demonstrated. The exceptional circumstances advanced by the promoters include essentially two matters: firstly, housing need, and secondly, need for further provision for sporting facilities. Now, those matters have been the subject of consideration of earlier sessions of the examination. The Council's firm position is that there is no need for further land to be allocated either to meet housing requirements or the sport and recreation requirements. The Council relies on its evidence given to earlier sessions of the examination, but if it is right, and the Council's position is that both of those respects is accepted, then essentially the case is supported the submission site doesn't get into the starting blocks, because they would not be exceptional circumstances grounded in development needs for any part of the development, and in particular to support Mr. Adams' options 1 and 2. That Mr. Adams was saying what he wished in response to that, but I don't see that being in substance that proposition can be realistically resisted. The second preliminary point I wish to raise concerns Mr. Adams' option 3, which is this issue about safeguarding land by removing it from the green belt, but preventing developments during the plan period, but with a view to meeting longer-term needs. Mr. Adams quite rightly indicates that that option has to be grounded in paragraph 85, bullet point 3 of the framework, which you remind you of, and which provides that such changes to greenbelt boundaries should only be made where necessary and in order to meet long-term development needs stretching well beyond the plan period. Well, so he would say that in terms of what the longer-term development needs are beyond the plan period, that is a matter for a later iteration of the development plan, probably in this context the joint plan, which is going to be prepared in due course for 2 authority areas. That is the appropriate mechanism for identifying needs beyond the plan period, and indeed, so far as if there are needs where they are to be met, that's a matter for consideration in terms of the spatial distribution of allocations to meet that need again for the further iteration of the plan. So we would say there is no substantive justification to indicate that the third option advanced by Mr. Adams, that is the removal of the plan from the green belt, a safeguard plan is met consistent with paragraph 85 bullet point 3 of the framework. Now, as I indicated, so those are particularly headline points, and I would invite Mrs. Hamilton to deal with any more detailed specific points which she needs to raise at this stage.
Thank you. I think it's worth noting at the outset that the proposals that are coming forward for this area have changed over time. My apologies for my voice. I don't think I have full voice today, and without a microphone I will do my best.
Thank you.
And nurse it to get me through the morning. The proposal for this area, this emission site, that was put forward in the strategy we made representations in 2013 was for a mix of residential and built sporting facilities with adjoining open spaces. The idea of an entirely residential proposal and option 2 has been put forward today, and option 3 of safeguarded land are new ideas put forward. Nevertheless, the council's position is that it's not necessary for soundness to include any of those options within the local plan. Mr. Edwards has focused very much on, talked about the objective house needs and the sporting needs, so I won't go over that further, but clearly we have our evidence on that. And in terms of safeguarded land, we expected to ask a question around that of the authorities in earlier matters, I think matter 3, and we've addressed this in some other matters subsequently. We are very clear that there is no need to either remove any land from the greenbelt and safeguard it for long-term development for very much the reasons that Mr. Edwards outlined just now. And particularly we would say that is important for land that is of great significance to greenbelt purposes. Follow up on one or two of the points, specific points that have been made. It's been described that this would form a natural extension of the Trumpeton Meadows allocation. And we'll talk about that in more detail when we move on to talk about the greenbelt role of this land. But I just wanted to pick up the background to Trumpeton Meadows, because I think it's important to remember that when the current developments that are in the adopted plans were identified, they were on the basis of a strategy that was looking to provide as much housing on the edge of Cambridge as was appropriate without fundamental harm to greenbelt purposes. And the adopted plans that looked at the right most appropriate boundary for that development very much took account of the impact on greenbelt purposes, and also the relationship of the allocations on either side of Hawkston Road. And I think looking at Appendix 1 of the Strategy statement is quite helpful in that respect, in that the yellow boundary of Trumpeton Meadows, which extends to the east end of Hawkston Road. And you'll see that the yellow text line there of the existing application is very clearly showing that a single clean boundary to the urban area was proposed through those plans, very much reflecting the importance of the clearly defined urban edge to the extended city, but maintaining an appropriate setting to the historic city and key aspects of greenbelt purposes, and as I say, we'll pick that up in the council as we move through the morning. In terms of the delivery of this site, were it to be allocated, suggestion that it could make substantial contributions to housing over the next 5 years. I think it's worth noting that the current development is still building out. Our housing trajectory, informed by discussions with the developers, envisages that Trumpeton Meadows itself won't be completed until 2020-21, and it's been described as a natural extension of Trumpeton Meadows. It would seem logical that it would build out following the completion of the existing site. So I think I would question the timing of delivery. And in terms of the relationship with the rest of the Southern Fringe, and particularly jobs in this location, that's a matter we've discussed again at a number of other hearings, and very much consideration of the authorities as they were putting together their plans to ensure that we were proposing a development strategy that reflected the circumstances of the area, the special characteristics of the area as demonstrated by the green belt, that we were putting together a strategy that provided for homes well located and well accessible to jobs and the infrastructure necessary to ensure that was capable of being delivered. So the strategy that you have heard from us a number of times, and we say is clearly set out in the Council Development Strategy Update document, which we referred to again a number of times. And I'll just ask Mr. Roberts to add one or two further details.
Yes, trying to avoid covering the same ground, but just perhaps adding a little bit more detail in places. So, Caroline and Clinton Edwards have talked about the previous submissions to the council. I think we did have two options submitted to us when we did our call for sites in 2011, which included one purely housing option, 500 homes then, and one 420 homes and sporting facilities. That moved on to, when we consulted issues and options one, the representation we had back at that time was for a mixed residential and sports, including community stadium, and also the proposed submission stage for a mixed development, residential and sports, including community stadium. There weren't any representations of the joint proposed modification stage. Give you a few more references where housing targets and objectively assessed need were considered at the Matter 3 and PM1 hearings, specifically in relation to issue 3A. And also housing delivery, the Matter 8 hearing. And it's also mention has been made by Mr. Adams, I believe, of that it could deliver 250 affordable homes. I think it's true at the PM1 hearing, the council's made clear that there is no issue of South Cambridgeshire meeting its affordable need. There was an issue in Cambridge. But it's true to say that only 14% of this site is within Cambridge. The vast majority is within South Cambridgeshire, so by implication, but the vast majority of the affordable housing would be in South Cambs as well. I won't mention anything about green belt or supporting need. The issue of safeguarding has been discussed at the Matter 6 hearing, specifically in relation to issue 6A3. And just a few headline points. There's still very large capacity on land taken out of the green belt between 2006 and 2009 by the local plans. It's getting on for nearly 10,000 homes. That's recorded in our December of 2016 AMRs. It'll be somewhat less now, but still a very large figure. And then on top of that, the need for safeguarding, Douglas Edwards has mentioned that's probably a matter for the next local plans, and that's correct. But it's also pertinent to note that the annual monitoring reports of both councils records that, I'll give you the reference for the South Cambs annual monitoring report is AD 480, and table ST1A in that records a capacity of 22,716 in South Cambs in the period up to 2031 and 15,300 post 2031. So you can see there is a very large capacity already known about for the post-2031 plan period.
Could I just come back on something that Mr. Edwards said? You said that the exceptional circumstances test from paragraph 83 of the framework would be engaged with options 1 and 2 as put forward. It seems to me that it would be engaged with option 3 as well, because it's a...
Yes, I was too hasty. Yes, it would. I had very much options 1 and 2 in mind because they were grounded in the customer's need during this plan period. But yes, you are quite right. It is option 3 as well.
Because when you safeguard land, you take it out of the
Yeah,
greenbelt, which is a change to the boundaries of the
So
greenbelt.
if I can be absolutely clear in my position, yes, option 3 also engages paragraph 83 in exceptional circumstances test, and is an added layer in the sense that the safeguarding proposal within option 3 also has to be the test of paragraph 85. Sorry for interrupting.
Thank you very much. Would it be convenient perhaps just to come back on a couple of those points straight away and then move on to other matters, Mr. Adams? I mean, I'll invite you to do that. I'm obviously not giving evidence. But one of the points I certainly think I'd like you to say something about is timing of delivery. Are you able to deal with that? Because what's being said is, well, it would follow on if the site was to be allocated development of the housing from the existing Trumpington Meadows development, which isn't due to complete until 2020 or 2021, and therefore it wouldn't be able to make a contribution to general affordable housing needs until then, is the basic point as I understand it.
Yes, I think there is no need for the development to be held back until the completion of Trumpington Meadows. There is ample housing demand to support the delivery of the final phases of Trumpington Meadows in parallel with putting in the first phases of its extension. My understanding is, and we can confirm this if I can take instructions, is that Trumpington Meadows is likely to be completed before 2021. It is already substantially completed and fully occupied. And I think there is a broader point here that there is an opportunity by planning for the delivery of the emission site now to have a continuity of the delivery of new housing in this location at a time when we know, as a matter of fact, that thousands of jobs will be taken up within in the southern fringe area. And that is quite unusual to be able to plan for a continuity of housing delivery and avoid what typically happens in the planning system is a time lag between identifying the need or the need being experienced and making provision for it. The consequences of that time lag are the challenges that we are facing now in terms of acute affordability issues and lack of choice. So by planning now for the emission site to come forward, you can have a continuity of the delivery of housing, building upon the success of the strategy that was put in place by the City Council when it brought forward Trumpington Meadows with the Carpen ride and local shopping and education facilities. But if the conclusion is that the need is not there now, which clearly we do not accept, then if we look at the framework, if we look at the actual wording of paragraph 85 of the framework, and this goes to Mr. Edwards' point, it's quite clear that the framework is inviting planning authorities to look beyond the planned period. So I think if I can just turn back to paragraph 85, bullet 3, and also refer to bullet 4 of the framework. So it says, the second part of the bullet point says, in order to meet longer-term development needs stretching well beyond the planned period. So that's inviting planning authorities to look beyond the planned period and to take account of what we would be saying is the inevitability of there being longer-term needs, development needs arising in the Cambridge area. And then the fourth bullet point is to clarify how that should be operated. Make clear that the safeguarded land is not allocated for development of the present time. The Planning Commission for the permanent development of safeguarded land should only be granted following a local plan review which proposes the development. So I think the intention of the framework is to look beyond this plan period. It's inviting local planning authorities to take a longer term view. And that must be right when you're planning in an area where there is a history of sustained growth and every prospect of sustained growth beyond the planned period. And I think this sort of goes to my point about trying to achieve a situation where you have some continuity and certainty of delivery of housing. And so the safeguarded land option is a mechanism that can reduce the gap that often happens between delivery to meet a need, then another need arising, and then a time lag in planning to meet that need. And this is a situation where we have the majority of infrastructure in place already to build upon. So I think those are the points I wanted to make in response to Mrs. Hunt and Mr. Roberts and Mr. Edwards. We can say a bit more about the infrastructure that exists and that we can build on when Mr. Axon talks about transport. And the key point on Greenbelt, I'd like Mr. Burton to be able to address.
Be happy to move on or to come back.
I think there may just be one or two short points that Mrs. Hunt would like to raise.
Thank you. Yes, I would. Thank you. I think it's very clear, I need to be very clear, the local authorities are in no way suggesting any holding back of development in this location. And indeed, we've encouraged faster delivery on the land that was brought forward by Broken through the last round of plans, if indeed the market in this location will support faster delivery. But we don't say that there's any need to release further land for that purpose. In terms of defining the boundary, in this and indeed all locations, the councils in the adopted plan very much looked beyond the plan period, and the point I made earlier about identifying the appropriate boundary for the long term of the green belt in this location very much goes to the heart of that point. I think it is worth emphasising in light of Adam's response that the strategy across the two plans does very much look forward. The strategy with there'll be 3 new settlements that will all continue to be building out beyond the plan period at Moorstowe, Waterbeach and Bourne Airfield. We say that there is, therefore significant forward-thinking and planning included within the plans. In terms of time lag for bringing forward major developments, we're very mindful of that. Experience of that in this area, and the plans very much take that into account in the strategies they are proposing, balancing that with ensuring a sustainable development strategy. And what I would say is if we run on that, we also are planning an early review of our plans, as you know, starting 2019. if not before.
Mr. Carey?
Thank you, sir. Just to clarify on timing, I'm advised that Trumpeton Meadows target completion is June 2020. And therefore the timing actually perfectly matches in terms of providing continuity of delivery, but also some acceleration in delivery. If the emission site was allocated in the local plan in, say, the first half of 2018, planning permission could be in place and construction could commence in 2019. There would be about 1 year of overlap in delivery. The emission site we would expect to be delivering at around 100 per year because we're in the area of the highest demand and highest pressure. So there is actually an opportunity to deliver completely continuity in terms of delivery and some acceleration towards the back end of this decade, just when the jobs are being taken up in the biomedical campus. There are, of course, a whole range of other locations, such as the new settlements, which are being brought forward. But this site is a site that can be developed sustainability and is better placed to maximise sustainable transport choices than locations outside the city, and is better placed to underpin the economic success of the biomedical campus by providing the housing where it's needed, when it's needed.
Do you wish to respond now?
Just very briefly, in terms of delivery on the allocated site, if that's coming forward at a faster rate than we don't anticipate, I'd say that's good news in terms of the health of the economy locally. And on the locational issues around transport, clearly we talked about that a lot yesterday at the transport hearing, and we've also talked a lot about employment and accessibility of it in other matters, so I don't think we intend to go into that again.
Do you wish to then proceed with the...
Yes, I'd like us to turn to Greenbelt and transport. And then in the light of those comments, I might just pick up briefly on the council statement.
I would suggest it would be better if you dealt with the points on the council statement and then we had a break perhaps and came back to do the other 2 points. Might that be suitable? It's just easier to, that's what I suggest. Can we do that? 45 and 56 of the council statement. Is that right? Have I got the paragraph numbers
Page
right?
12 to start off.
So it is like council series statement.
Sorry, page
12. Page 12, paragraph 45 is the first one.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Brennan, there you
On page 45, the council statement refers to key issues identified in the sustainability addendum report for the emissions site. And then the issues are listed with a commentary. And the point that I want to draw out is that with the exception of the concerns relating to impact on the greenbelt, very high impacts on greenbelt purposes as put forward by the council, none of the other issues go to the principle of the suitability of the site for housing. And all of the other issues can be mitigated. And I just wanted perhaps to illustrate that. I don't think I need to go through all the points, but air quality, there is no evidence that the proposed emission site would not be suitable for housing having regard to air quality. The transport corridors may experience poor air quality, but there's no evidence that the site is not suitable for housing. I don't think that is part of the council's case. In terms of noise, the council say that the site lies close to the M11, and while residential development could be acceptable, a high level of transport noise mitigation would be required, and then identifies a number of mitigation measures. And I just wanted to provide our assessment of the noise issue raised at the site.
Can we just pick up paragraph 56 as well before?
I'll come back to noise.
Because that, okay. I mean, because 56 deals with noise as well.
Yes.
Just to complete what the council was saying about noise. 56 on page 15.
In 56.
This is the context, is the planning application. Nevertheless, there are some, there's mention of noise.
There's further mention of noise in the bottom, in the last two, in the last sentence, that ambient traffic noise levels are over the page, such that the sustainability and overall environmental quality of the development will be compromised. The majority of dwellings would require mechanical ventilation. Noise levels in gardens would be at the upper end of acceptability, and recreational and open areas closer to the M11 would suffer from even higher noise levels. And I just wanted to put that into some context. Firstly, those noise conditions apply already to part of the existing Trumpington Meadows site. The mitigation measures which are identified in paragraph 45 in the second bullet are exactly the sort of mitigation measures that have been deployed successfully on the Trumpington Meadows site and are commonly used to mitigate noise in housing developments close to major highways or other transport corridors. WSP, our clients' consulting noise consultants, did examine this issue in the context of the planning application, but because the application has been withdrawn, that information hasn't been submitted. But I can just confirm, and we can provide a technical note if the council wanted to have, or indeed if you wanted further information. That although their advice is that although some facade mitigation measures will be required to achieve good internal design criteria at night, the vast majority of dwellings on the emission side will be able to ventilate naturally from their sheltered elevations without compromising those design criteria. And WSP's advice is also that any noise conditions in gardens or indeed on sports pitches would not be a constraint or breach any standards. So
the council suggesting they would actually, are they?
So the council have identified noise as an issue, but I think the key point we wanted to clarify is that any noise conditions on the site, the uses proposed, can be mitigated by means that are commonly used in locations such as this.
Just in terms of the sort of public open space areas, I mean, well, the country park extends already, doesn't it, down to the motorway? And the council have
The country
approved
park
that.
already extends to the motorway. There are noise bunds in place which against the motorway, and country park was obviously considered to be acceptable for recreational uses in that location. So I think the same principle applies to proposals for recreational uses in the retained area of green belt adjoining the emission site. And just the final point I wanted to make was just to pick up on a point raised by the council at paragraph 56 in relation to secondary school capacity locally. So this is a point from the letter that the council sent to the applicants on the 23rd of November. And just because we haven't talked about secondary school capacity, our position on secondary school capacity is if it is concluded that more houses are needed within the plan, then it will be necessary to ensure that adequate secondary school provision is provided. And clearly, the development of the emission site will make financial contributions to fund additional school places in the normal way. So we're not aware of any evidence to suggest that secondary school capacity should be a constraint to further development in the metropolitan area. But clearly, financial contributions would be made in the normal way to provide additional capacity.
All right, thanks very much. That completes that. I don't know how you'd like to proceed, whether you want to do a break now, whether the council want to respond to those points now.
Well, we can answer if that's a big issue, then that's pretty.
We break and resume at 10:45.